for joining the Broadway Drumming 101 podcast with your host, Clayton Craddock.
Welcome to the Broadway Drumming 101 podcast. My name is Clayton Craddock, and this is your one-stop shop for everything you'll need to know about playing drums for Broadway musicals. This is part 2 of my conversation with Bill Lanham. In this part of our conversation, you're going to hear how he landed the drum chair for the first national tour of Les Mis and how he wound up playing the last 12 years of Les Mis on Broadway. He talks about his experiences at South Pacific, Evita, Cats, and we discuss some of the more important things about being a successful drummer on a Broadway show. Stay tuned.
If you like what you hear on the show, subscribe to the Broadway Drumming 101 newsletter at broadwaydrumming101.substack.com. That's Substack, substack.com. Thank you for listening.
After you were subbing around a little bit, you said you went out on tour.
Yeah, I went out on the first national tour of Les Miserables.
What was that experience like?
That was nice. That was a back then, and I don't know if they describe them the same way anymore, but they had national tours and bus and truck tours. So bus and truck tours were tours that did like 1 weekers, sometimes even like maybe like 2 dayers. Like, oh, I'm gonna be in some small town in Omaha for two nights. Then we're gonna move to somewhere else in Montana for 3 nights. I was on a national tour, which national tours were more sit down. So we did, our shortest stay in a city was 2 months. So it was nice. So you got a chance to kind of sit down, know the city, like know where you were going, kind of make a little home base. So it was great. It was we were in cities for at least, I'd say on average, at least 3 months. Some cities we were in longer, like we were in Chicago for 6 months. We were in DC for like 5 months. Detroit for like 4 months. So you got a chance to know the cities and feel comfortable there. And feel like somewhat home for a little while at least. So and the experience was nice because you're playing. Obviously, those tours, the national tours would carry like a core of musicians. So on our Les Mis tour, we carried basically a rhythm section and conductor minus the bass player. The rest of the orchestra we would pick up in the cities that we went to. On the bus and truck tours, they would carry a full orchestra with the Les Mis. I'm trying to recall the Les Mis parts back then were like, I think maybe 24 pieces orchestra or something like that. So on the tour they would carry, and a bus and truck would be maybe a little bit more condensed because they would supplement the strings on keyboard. So they would carry maybe a couple of string players, but they would carry like maybe 20 musicians as opposed to the tour I was on. We would carry only 4. No, sorry, we would carry 5. That's counting the conductor. So keyboard 1, keyboard 2, guitar, drums, conductor. Yeah, so 5. So
did you come back to New York and start playing on shows after that, or what did you do after the tour?
Well, fortunately for me, after the tour, it was all kind of due to timing. So I went out on the Les Mis tour, Les Mis national tour. I was out on that tour for about 2.5 years. And while that tour was starting to wind down, a show called Miss Saigon was opening. And in Miss Saigon, they were going to use the drummer and percussionist who were playing the Les Mis Broadway version over in Miss Saigon. So the drummer and percussionist from Miss Saigon, from the Broadway version of Les Mis, left Les Mis to go play the Broadway version of Miss Saigon. Hence, I got a call since I was doing the tour of Les Mis to come in and be the drummer on the Broadway version of Les Mis. So timing was was really, really good for me in that regard. And Les Mis ended up being a long-term gig for me, including the tour and the Broadway run. So I didn't come back to Broadway. I didn't actually come back from the tour subbing. I kind of came back from the tour with a gig, which was kind of
That's
really
great.
Really a blessing.
So how long did you have that Les Mis gig?
So the Les Mis gig, I was on the Les Mis tour for about 2.5 years, and I did the rest of the Broadway run for 12 years. So total of about maybe 14.5 years of playing Les Mis.
That's amazing. Yeah. I knew you did it for a while, but wow, that's amazing. So I met you when you were playing Les Mis. I can't remember when I met you, but I saw you play.
I remember you came and sat in the pit. I remember, yeah.
And I was scared to death.
Oh, stop.
Seriously, no. You were doing some stuff, and the odd time stuff, and you did one fill. I don't know what you did. I was like, holy cow, I'm not cut out for this. I just walked out like this, like.
Oh, stop.
I'll never make it in this business. I'll never do it. No, but it was an eye-opening experience because shows are different from pit to pit, and just seeing what each drummer and each musician does, it's an incredible experience. I think I learned a lot just watching you and knowing your style and knowing that it's playing musicals is different from playing other types of gigs, and you have to it's a specialized skill, and you definitely are a specialist. top of the heap. So for 12 years on Broadway. Now, the longest thing I've done was Memphis the Musical, and that was almost 3 years. I never got tired of playing my show. I loved every single minute of it. The producers were great. The musicians were great. The cast was great. The crew was great. The show was great. We won Tony Awards. I wouldn't trade anything. I'd still be doing it if it was still running. Did you ever get it to a point where you're like, my God, I have to go in again?
I never got to the point where, I never got to the point where I didn't want to do it anymore. I will say after 12 years of doing something, the same thing over and over every night, I did get to points where I felt like a little like emotionally drained, or like, I'm playing the same thing every night, However, I did try to keep myself busy with other stuff, so when I could, I took off and I did other projects and I did other gigs and stuff. That helped. And then I looked at it from the standpoint of, listen, I have a gig. I have a gig that that not too many other people have. They don't have like long running shows. And I have a gig where I can, fortunately, take care of myself, take care of my family. And I looked at it from that standpoint. So when I got to those points where I was like, starting to feel like, oh man, this is a drag, and I never got to that point where it was, where I did feel that. But when I started feeling maybe those negative things coming on, I was like, listen, man, count your blessings, be thankful you have this gig. It's a long running gig. Not too many people have this. And other guys who were older than me helped me appreciate that and told me that. And where they say, hey, listen, be grateful for what you have,
Like William Devon.
Thankful
for what you got.
So I always tried to focus on, being grateful for what I had. And, even now I look at it because, Les Mis was running. Les Mis, Phantom of the Opera opened up a year after Les Mis, and Phantom of the Opera is still running. And so sometimes I question myself. I'm like, man, if Les Mis was still running, would I still be playing it? Would I still have that, And there are people on the Phantom of the Opera run right now who are some of the original musicians, So
that's what I hear. I wonder.
You gotta be grateful,
I never was really interested, nor did I ever get a chance to go see the show or see anyone in the pit.
Yeah.
But 30 years doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Man, how did you keep it fresh? Or how did you, is it basically knowing that you had a gig and you were appreciative of what you had, and that's how you, or did you do anything else to try to maintain your sanity?
I would keep it fresh by, like what I said before, being grateful for what I had, being thankful for what I had. But I would also, to the extent that I could, I would try to throw in, like, I would try to deviate a little bit from the book, just a tad. I mean, you can't do on a show like that. You can't do much,
Right.
On any show, because people are expecting to hear certain things, certain cues. Oh, the drummer played this, he threw me off. You don't want to hear that. However, within reason, I would try to throw in little things that that would make it different for me. And there were some things, honestly, there were some things in the original Les Mis book, in the original Les Mis drum book, because Les Mis actually has been revived a few times, and I know the drum book has changed. But in the original drum book, there are some things in there that were every night was a challenge. To play not only drumming wise, but you're also playing in a group of 20, I think we're at 24, 25 musicians in a pit. And the rhythm section was not geographically together. So this was pre, in-ear monitors and stuff like that. So we had either headphones or hotspots. So in the setup for Les Mis at the theater, the drums were all the way in a corner next to the percussionist. The two keyboard players who you would want to kind of lock in with, they were kind of more in the middle of the pit. The bass player and the guitarist were on the other side of the pit. And in the middle of the pit, there was an elevator, which was part of what the cast used, because there was some scenes on stage where the cast would escape through what was called a sewer on the stage. So the cast a character had to go through the sewer, and so to make it look like he went through the sewer, they dug a hole in the stage, which ended up being a hole into the pit, which was where they would come out. So we had a lot of challenges in terms of playing, sometimes just playing together, because we had to rely on our phones or the hotspot that we had, and sometimes it would be like, oh, I'd rather just listen. So there were and some of the stuff was challenging. There was a song in there. There was a cue called "The Attack of Rue Plumet," which was every night, man. That was a real challenge to play. I mean, and we did it well, but it was, if you weren't on your P's and Q's, it was tough.
This is his lair, I've seen the old fox around. He keeps himself to himself, he's staying close to the ground. I smell profiteer. 10 years ago, he came and paid for Cosette. I let her go for a song, it's time we settled the debt. This old custom dare. What do I care who you should rob? Give me my share, finish the job. You shut your mouth, give me your hand. What have we here? Who is this hussy? It's a brat up and in. Don't you know your own kid? Why is she hanging about
So,
you?
being there for 12 years, you saw a transition in technology in the pit. Did you have a conductor cam by the time you ended? And did you have in-ears and your own Aviom? Like, how was the transition, or did you have a transition? Or
No. The only no, because at that point, Avioms were starting to come in, and people were starting to, do, conductor videos and stuff. But by that point, no, there was no transition. That was basically it is what it is. That's kind of the way you went into it, and that's kind of the way it ended up being.
Do you know if places like Phantom of the Opera are still operating on technology from 1987?
I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see what happens in the fall.
Yeah. That I don't know.
So after Les Mis, what was next for you?
So after Les Mis was a bunch of subbing.
What year is this, by the way?
This is around 2000. So Les Mis closed, the original Les Mis closed in May of 2003. And took a little bit of a break, and then just got back into, networking and trying to sub. So I, Started subbing Boy From Oz, Wicked. Actually, I was very fortunate right after subbing on Les Mis, after a little bit of a hiatus, to be able to start subbing on some long running shows. So Wicked, I subbed on for many years. Mamma Mia was running. I subbed on that for many years. Boy From Oz didn't last for too long, but I subbed on that for a little while. Spam-A-Lot was another one. And, I got some shows that had some legs to them. So I did fairly well at them subbing. So I was able to sub on those shows for a while. So I subbed on a bunch of shows. Next Broadway show I got was South Pacific.
Oh, yeah.
Center.
Did you do any readings that led to those shows or workshops?
I did whenever I've gotten hired, I've always gotten hired for stuff that was already kind of in the works to kind of come in, So the workshops I've done never have really led to any other shows, I recently actually just did a workshop that it's not going to be a Broadway show, but it was a show. It was a show kind of based on some Andrew Lloyd Webber music it's being planned for Norwegian Cruise Lines. So we did a workshop of that, and it has no Broadway aspirations at all. But the Broadway stuff I've done in terms of readings and workshops. So no, I haven't done any readings that have led to workshops, but I've been in workshop spaces where you're doing rehearsals for something coming in. So a lot of stuff that I've done has always had rehearsals in the workshop space, so to speak, but they were already, it was already booked for the theater it was going in, and that's what it was.
You mentioned the show Wicked. I remember a while ago, I think you said this, I don't know if it was you, but I've heard that Wicked is very, very difficult to play. Is that
Wicked is wicked?
I've never heard the music. I've never seen the show. I don't know anything about it. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Yeah. Is it really difficult to play, or is it what is it about the show that makes it so hard to play?
Wicked, first of all, is difficult to play, but once you get it together, it's very fun to play. What makes it difficult is the amount of transitions between, I'll say, maybe between tempos and things you have to play. Like, not only are you playing drums, you're playing rhythmic stuff on the triangle, or rhythmic stuff on like a talking type drum, and you have to put that stuff down, and you have like about maybe two beats in a measure to get your sticks. I remember playing stuff at Wicked with my mallets underneath my arm while I'm playing. With my sticks underneath my arm, playing with mallets, playing a cymbal roll, dropping the stick, dropping the mallets, pulling my sticks out, and like within a beat or beat and a half, you have to be ready to play a fill into some other. It's a lot. I'll put it to you. It's a lot of choreography. It's a lot of choreography between pulling stuff up and pulling sticks out, beaters out, mallets out. Making sure it's a lot of transitions like that. That's what makes it tough. And then obviously there's a lot of conductor watching for stuff that's groove oriented or tempo changes, and stuff comes in with click sometimes, and so there's a lot of variables in there. So, but it's enjoyable once you get it together.
So you went from Les Mis to subbing, and then you got South Pacific, and that I think you were doing that when I was doing Memphis. Okay. And after that, what was the next thing that came your way?
Okay, South Pacific then was the short little run of a show that didn't last was called Wonderland. That lasted for about maybe about rehearsals were about maybe 4 weeks, and then the run was about 4 weeks. So we're hoping to get some more legs out of it. Yeah. And then so the Wonderland, and then after Wonderland, did some more subbing, and then Evita. I did Evita for about a year and a half. A revival of that. That was nice. And then after Evita was a short revival of Jekyll and Hyde, which lasts for about another 4 weeks. And then a little bit of a hiatus for that. Well, some subbing. We subbed on some things together, I think, or same shows like Motown and stuff like that. Yeah. And then some more subbing on some different things. And then Cats revival came in. That was fun. Did that for about a year and a half, 2 years did we get to? We got a year and a half out of that. So that was fun. Enjoyed that.
I remember subbing for you for Evita and at Cats, and it was 2 shows that were completely different from what I had done before, because, growing up playing groove-oriented music and then playing groove-oriented shows, whether it's Tick Tick Boom or Altar Boys or Memphis, doing something in the Andrew Lloyd Webber vein is very, very different. And it took me a while. You talk about subbing and learning the show and going to see it. I had to go in a number of times. I like to spend at least a month learning the show, but it took me so long in order to get to certain things that you were doing. Again, I just admire your skill level and your the way you play and the things that you did. It actually helped me become a better player, especially with songs like "And the Money Kept Rolling In." Rolling. And I gotta tell you,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh my God! I was like, do I have to play this? Can I just? Is there a funk show that's? Can we do a slave show? Anyway,
slave show, right? Slave show in 7. How about that?
Slide.
Dun, 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 dun.
That would be hilarious. The thing about playing that song, though, growing up playing along to Tom Sawyer, which is in 7,
yeah, right?
I was like, oh shit, it's just like Tom Sawyer. Let me just do that. So it kind of helped having that reference. But man, it was a lot of fun working on the show. And again, Cats was very interesting. I loved that little drum solo near the end.
At the end of the first act, yeah, that was fun.
Now, I don't know how different it was from the original. Was that in the original Cats as well? Like that, was it a McCavity fight? Whatever the 2 cats.
Oh yeah, no. In the original, some of the stuff in the Cats revival was new stuff that was arranged by John Clancy, fellow drummer that we both know. Yeah, great stuff. So John arranged some really fun stuff to play. So some of the stuff in the Cats revival was arranged by him, and since he's a drummer, it was fun to play that stuff. And so some of the stuff in the Cats revival, was not in the original. It was added. However, a lot of the stuff in the Cats revival was what it originally was. You know.
Did you see the Cats movie?
I'm trying to remember. Yeah,
Damn, must not be very memorable.
no, I don't think I did see the Cats movie. I don't think I watched, or I watched it, and you know what? I can't remember it. So maybe I didn't see it. So,
I got to tell you, I might be the only person out here that actually enjoyed it because it explained a lot that I didn't understand by seeing the show, a bunch of times.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff that didn't make sense, but the movie tried to explain. But I don't want to get into that whole thing.
Right.
What are some of the things? And you've been around for a while. What are some of the things that drummers should never do in a Broadway pit?
Never do in a Broadway pit. Never do is to treat people disrespectfully. We live or we work in a world where people need to feel comfortable. So never go in with a chip on your shoulder, and never think you're all that. Always be willing to listen to other players and respect their opinions. And never treat anybody disrespectfully, because it's not gonna benefit you. You're probably not going to be asked to come back there, and you just build up a bad reputation for yourself.
On the flip side, what are things that a drummer should always do?
On the flip side of that, treat people respectfully, but also as a drummer, watch the conductor. Watch the conductor, or I should say, as a drummer, you can't always watch the conductor because maybe you're focusing on your part, especially if you're subbing. But be aware of, be in tune with the conductor in some way. Be aware of what's going on, and unless the show is like all on click, you have to be aware of what's going on. And even if the show is all on click, there are things that the conductor will do that will help you out. So know what's happening with the conductor in terms of what he wants. That will be, and make sure that he knows that you're kind of on his side.
What's the biggest piece of advice that you got over the years that has helped you in your career as a musician? Whether not necessarily musically, but in general, is there any, something that you'd like to pass on to other people? You know what, kid, what you need to know is
don't be late. Don't be late. And when I say late, I mean not late in terms of your downbeat. I mean late in terms of being at the gig. Like if the gig starts at 8, you're late if you arrive at 8, because that's what time the show starts. So be early. If the gig starts at 8, be there in time to, do what you need to do. Run through the show. If you need to run through the show, you need to, get used to the guy's setup, or you warm. If it's your show, warm up for yourself. If you're taking a train there or a car there, whatever, make sure you're there. Make sure you do whatever you need to do so that you're ready to play, ready to perform at 8. Don't get there at 8. So yeah, that goes with any gig, and with any Broadway, with any gig. Make sure you're ready to do what you need to do when you need to do it.
Now, a couple more questions. But speaking of being late, I don't know if everyone has experienced this, but being on a show for a long time and living in and around New York City, there are certain things that you can't control. You got to get there at 7:15 for 8 o'clock show, or 7:30. Have you ever gotten a situation where you're like, I'll get there? You leave at say 6:30, and you normally get there at 7:15, but man, something's happened and it's like 7:14, 7:30. You're like, oh my God. I mean, has that happened a lot to you? And what has been your craziest close call?
It hasn't happened a lot to me. I usually try to leave myself enough time. Especially if I'm doing a Broadway thing, I usually try to be there probably an hour before showtime. For me is kind of not comfortable. I try to get there like maybe an hour and a half.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, an hour is okay. But warm up, whatever. I want to make sure I'm there. And yes, I have. We've all kind of been in situations like that. When I was doing the original Les Mis, I lived on Long Island, and I had a train that I would same train. I would take the same train. It would get into Penn Station at 7:20 on the dot every day. Or on a matinee day, it was 1:20. Matinee starts at 2, so plenty of time to get up to Penn Station. That was comfortable for me. One day, and it happened 2 Wednesdays in a row. There was train issues, and I'm sitting in the tunnel between Penn Station and Queens. I'm sitting in the tunnel, and it's like I want to say it's 1:45, 1:50. I'm like, oh man. I said, I am totally done. So long story short, we got through. I ran out. I was thinking so much. I was like, I said, is there any way I can like walk from here, like on the track? And they said, no, you can't do that. I'm like, oh my God, it's because I was just freaking out. Anyway, long story short, we pulled in. I was able to run upstairs. I hopped in a cab on 8th Avenue for like 6 blocks, and we got to 42nd Street at Bottleneck. I gave the guy $10. I ran out. I got to the theater. Thankfully, I made it on time. I mean, I made it to the theater before, because sometimes back in those times, sometimes 2:00 curtain sometimes the show wouldn't start maybe to like 2:05, 2:06. So I had a little bit of play, but wasn't what I was hoping for, wanted to do. And So yeah, I've been in situations like that, but yeah. And then I said to myself, listen, I need to leave a little bit earlier. And so just learning from those experiences and priding myself on not being late, but, making sure that I'm not, making sure I'm there on time.
That's great advice, though. Don't be late and get there early.
Yeah.
Because, the older that I've gotten, the more cautious I've become.
Yep.
And I realized that, even recently playing these club dates, I get there like an hour before, and I feel so much better being there at 7:00. First of all, doing club dates, setting up your drums, just having it set up. It's set up by 7:30, so you got time to just chill. It's so much better.
Exactly.
So, going back to your beginnings, are you into computer science at all? Did you study any kind of languages? Are you into technology now, or that's, just put that in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still into technology. I mean, I work in Pro Tools. I have used my computer knowledge, but more in a musical kind of way. And I feel comfortable on using programs and stuff like that. The languages I learned when I was in college.
Fortran.
Oh wow, woo, Clayton, Fortran. Yeah,
I knew a little bit about that.
That was my first semester of computer languages. Fortran,
COBOL,
and my second semester was advanced Fortran. Yep, Fortran.
Is C++ around?
I remember we used a language called COBOL.
Yes,
a language called assembly language. Yeah, a lot of that stuff is not around anymore. So, but my experience with computers and how they, being comfortable in the computer world has helped me, with, let's say like Pro Tools or doing things on the computer, musical things on the computer, plugins and all that stuff. So just overall has helped me. So.
Do you teach at all now?
I do some teaching. I have a couple of students. We're in the Zoom world now, so doing stuff over Zoom. So doing some of that and doing some lessons that way. So that has its own challenges because you're not physically there present with people. So it's, it's a little challenging, but, we make it work.
Are you working on any projects at the moment? Are you any possible musicals? Are you doing any club dates? Any other? Yeah, you have your band Natural High putting it back together.
Natural High, wow.
Bloodstone, I don't know.
Bloodstone, yeah. I'm working on. I get projects every now and then. I do some home recording. I do play in a club date band, thanks to you.
Oh, man.
You told me about an audition that this band was having, and they picked me as their drummer, and I've been with them for about 12 years now. So
wow.
And has it been 12? It's been see, it was 2008, I think, was our first, or 2007 or 2008 was our first gig. Yeah. So we've been fortunate enough to keep busy. I even bragged last year that I think we did like 6 gigs last year during the pandemic, and people were like, "Man, you did 6 gigs?" I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Wow." So
it's 6 more than everyone else.
Yeah. So still working with them. We have a gig this weekend. We had a gig last weekend, and show-wise, like I said, I did that recent Andrew Lloyd Webber Norwegian project. We'll see what happens with that. I'm not going to probably go on any cruise ships to do it, but we'll see what happens with it. And then we'll see what happens when Broadway opens again. See what subbing opportunities come up, or if other opportunities come up. But
did Broadway lead to any kind of endorsement deals?
Yes and no. Broadway, I would say Broadway didn't lead to them. Broadway helped in me getting them because I actually pursued them. So I'm with Remo, I'm with Paiste, I'm with Vic Firth. But they didn't approach me. I approached them, and I would say it's because it was when I was on the first national tour of Les Mis that I got those deals. It was because that was a big thing on the resume to put, and it was because of that helped me get those, and I've been very happy with all 3 of those companies. They've been very supportive of me, and whenever I needed something, they've done it. Vic Firth made some specialty sticks I used for many years at Les Mis. Paiste initially loaned me a pair of orchestral crash cymbals that I used at South Pacific, and then when I went to go give them back, they said, "Well, you earned your keep with them. You can keep them." I was like, "Wow, it's great." Remo's been great with me over the years with lots of stuff. They've all been very supportive and very great. So.
If people wanted to reach out to you to get lessons, do you have a website?
I don't have a website.
Social media?
Social media. I'm not a social media guy either, but Bill Lanham at AOL.com is my email address. You can reach me there.
Did you ever look back and say, "I wish I had done the computer science thing," or just say, "You know what? I made the right choice in pursuing music"?
No. No. Never looked back on it. And it's funny, you made me hesitate because I had to think about it one time because in my sophomore year of high school, I was involved in this. Sophomore year of college, I was with this program that was pushing students to go on job interviews and get experience. So it was basically for seniors and juniors. But since I was doing well in school and I was a computer science student, they put me in this program, and they got me this interview with the IRS back in the 80s. And their location was out in Holbrook back then. So they sent me on this interview, and they had told me, I said, "Listen, they're really looking for sophomores. They're looking for juniors and seniors. So you're a sophomore, so they're probably not going to offer you the job, but just go on the interview for experience." I was like, all right, meanwhile, I was gigging, I was doing shows, and I was doing club dates, and I was doing all this other stuff, So they're interviewing me, and I was so not into doing the computer thing back then. And so they were interviewing me. So Mr. Lanham, blah, 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 so what are your plans for the summer? What do how do you think, what are you going to bring to us? I said, well, I got some gigs lined up with, with some shows and my band and stuff. So, I don't know what, I'll try to fit in what you have for me, around my schedule. And I was like, oh my goodness. I said that at an IRS interview. I mean, that just like showed them how non-interested I was in
and they're like
computer science and pursuing music.
And they wanted to hire you, or they were like, no.
When I left, I was like, oh, well, when I left, I was like, oh, well, I'm probably not getting that gig. And now as an older person, I'm looking back, I'm like, man, what an idiot I was. How rude I was.
I think you obviously made the right choice. You are a wildly successful musician, and
I don't know about that.
Well, seriously, you've done so much in your life, and I definitely admire the things that you've accomplished, and I love your drumming, and you're definitely an inspiration to me. I'd like to, I'd love to have a job that lasts for 14 years or 12 years on Broadway. But, I really appreciate the opportunities that you've given me over the years.
And vice versa, too. Vice versa. Because you've done things for me, too. So that goes back to you. And your playing has been inspirational to me as well, too. So
thank you, man.
Kudos to you. Yep.
Well, thank you for joining me on the Broadway Drumming 101 podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bill Lanham. And I will be talking to you soon, Mr. Lanham.
All right.
Thanks again.
You got it.
Thank you again for joining us. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please take a moment to give us a nice rating and review.